How's it going, everybody? My name is Cameron White, and welcome back to your favorite monthly horoscope, this time for March of 2024, Capricorn, Sun, and Rising. Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing to my videos. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. There's a lot to talk about this month, so we're going to go ahead and just jump straight into the horoscope. And the first thing that we've got going on this month is on March 4th, we're going to be having Venus in ingress into Taurus. Now, Venus, of course, is the planet of love, value. She wants you to connect to the things that you like. She wants you to enjoy things. She wants to stimulate all of your senses and basically just help you enjoy whatever you can. Now, Venus is going into her home sign of Taurus. This is her domicile. This is her area. And Venus likes to be in Taurus because it's her house. But what this means, though, is Venus has access to the resources and the tools that she needs to do the job that she needs to get done. And that is of enjoyment, of fulfillment. And as Venus goes into Taurus, this is bringing the focus of value and luxury onto what is sustainable, what is growing, what is of abundance, and where is of some stability and some security. Venus really wants to emphasize on security when she's in Taurus. And as she goes into Taurus, Venus is also going to be transiting your 5th house. This is really exciting because the 5th house is all about love, romance, children, sex, creation, art, music, all of the things that, bring a little bit of fun into your life depending on how you view kids. But as Venus goes into your 5th house and goes into Taurus, this is where you're probably going to be experiencing a lot more livelihood and a lot better time dealing with love and romance. And as Venus transits your 5th house as well, this might be a time to focus more on your art, your music, or whatever creative adventures that you are undertaking this month. Because as Venus transits Taurus, this is going to really create some nice energy to work with regarding this area. So as Venus transits your 5th house, have some fun, have some sex, enjoy yourself a little bit. It's been a hard year for you guys. Also on March 4th, that's when we're going to be having Mercury retrogress back into Aquarius. Now, Mercury has been retrograding in your 3rd house, causing some confusion and some miscommunications around those 3rd house topics. But as Mercury goes back into Aquarius and goes back into your 2nd house, this is where Mercury can have a little bit more rationale and a little bit more logic and maybe a different perspective looking at the situation to create some better solutions and to kind of figure out what the problem is here. As Mercury goes back into your 2nd house, this is where the focus gets drawn to money, to resources, finances, what you own and what you physically possess. So as Mercury goes back into Aquarius, it's still going to be retrograde, but the focus is now going to be more on money and resources and what you own and how that's involved with this Mercury retrograde for you. Now, as we do move forward on March 9th, this is when we're going to be having the full moon in Virgo happen, as the sun is transiting your 3rd house of Pisces, bringing awareness and illumination to what you're doing, how you do it, your siblings, your neighbors, short distance travel, communication. This full moon is happening in your 9th house of far distance travel, higher education, spiritual beliefs. And so as this full moon happens, this is going to be a really good time to maybe write down your to-do list, go over your checklist of what needs to get done and what needs to get taken care of with regarding 9th house matters. So whether it is your spiritual practice and kind of focusing more a little bit on that, or it is a little bit more of education and learning and growing more, or maybe you just need to travel and kind of get out of your house a little bit, this full moon in Virgo is going to be kind of a good time to go over your checklist with what needs to get done regarding that. But also on March 9th is when we're going to be having Mercury station direct. Now, as Mercury's in Aquarius, this is where we get, again, a little bit more logic, a little bit more rationale, a little bit of a easier time understanding what the issue is and finding a little bit more of an easier time creating a solution. As Mercury stations direct, this is where we actually start going after these problems. And now that it's in Aquarius and in your 2nd house, this might be focused on using money or using the resources that you have to kind of help fix whatever problems that you might have had. And as we move forward onto March 16th, this is when Mercury goes back into Pisces. Now, Mercury's still going to be in its shadow phase, so we're going to be going over for the 3rd and final time everything that this Mercury retrograde kind of brought with us. But at this time now, what I've been saying in my videos is, Mercury wants to deliver a message on a piece of paper, black and white ink, so things are clear. But Mercury can't do that in Pisces. Mercury doesn't have access to all of the tools that, it needs or that it wants to do its job the way that it wants to. Mercury in Pisces kind of has to jot down some notes with a highlighter on their hand, and by the time they deliver the message, the writing's all smeared and they kind of just have to go off the cuff and remember everything that they can and explain it that way. Now, certain things, respond a little bit better when they're communicated through that, and some things respond better when they're communicated through written, tactful message. But that's neither here or there. Why I'm saying all of this, though, is while Mercury goes through Pisces again, it's going to be in detriment. We're not going to be receiving messages in black and white. We're going to be receiving messages in a lot of different ways, but this time, don't get too confused about it. You know, trust a little bit more of your intuition. Go a little bit more deeper inside yourself. And as Mercury transits your third house, the third house is all about, you know, it does have a lot of mercurial things about it, like communication and our writing and speaking style. But the third house also has to do with short distance travel, has to do with our siblings, our neighbors, how we utilize ourselves, and what tools we're best useful with. And so as Mercury transits Pisces through this area, you know, be more aware and be more open to communication through different mediums. Not everything has to be black and white and English. You know, things can be open for interpretation, but instead of making assumptions about everything, be a little bit more open, be a little bit more aware this time around as Mercury transits through your third house of Pisces. But then we get to March 20th, and that's when we're going to be having the sun ingress into Aries, and we have the Spring Equinox. The sun likes to be in Aries. It's a sign of exaltation. And that's because the sun, you know, is starting to get brighter. Days are starting to get longer. It's starting to get hotter outside. The sun really likes to be in Aries, isn't symbolic of that. But as the sun enters Aries, the sun's going to be entering your fourth house, bringing awareness and illumination to fourth house topics. So your family, your parents, your home life, your living situation, whether you live with your family or you've got a bunch of roommates that you live with, the sun going into Aries, going in your fourth house is just going to bring awareness to this area, bring more of a light to this area that you can see things and work on things a little bit easier. But the big thing that we've got going on is the next day on March 21st is when we're going to be having Saturn ingress into Aquarius. Now, this is a really big deal. That's why I'm kind of scooting up here. Saturn's going to be in Aquarius from March 21st until July 1st. That's when it will retrograde and go back into Capricorn for like 6 months. At the end of this year, Saturn's going to go back into Aquarius and stay in Aquarius for the next 3 years. So this 3-4 month window that we have of Saturn and Aquarius is really going to give us a sneak preview of what the next few years are going to look like. So make sure you're really paying attention when, when Saturn ingresses into Aquarius, because there's going to be some things that get brought up that are going to be kind of addressed with going with the next few years. Now, this is really exciting for you guys, of course, because you finally get Saturn leaving your first house, but we have to explain some things before we just get excited about it. Saturn is all about limitations, restrictions, being told no, you know, hitting walls, hitting barriers, being constricted. However, on the flip side, Saturn is also about being more responsible, being more disciplined, being more mature, being committed to your obligations. And Capricorn, you know, don't take any of this personally, but just as an analogy, I like to use Capricorn as kind of like the corporate mindset. What is the most efficient way to do things? What system needs to be put in place? What is the cheapest and the easiest way to, you know, go after what it is I need to go for? Aquarius is a little bit more open-minded. It's kind of like, you know, in that same analogy, Capricorn is kind of like a stuffy office with no windows, no heater, no AC, because the boss is too cheap to run any of that shit. And Aquarius is kind of like Google. Like, it's a, you know, industrial like place to work. I mean, Google kind of runs the world at this point, but it's open. It works better for, as far as they say, it works better for the employees. It's got a breath of fresh air in it. And Saturn being in Capricorn makes things very, you know, angular, makes things very, you know, clean cut. Saturn in Aquarius goes about things a little bit more differently. And Saturn in Aquarius focuses on doing things that are going to be more beneficial for you and everyone else involved. So it's not about doing what's the, you know, the fastest and the cheapest way, but what is the best way? What makes more sense? What's more rational to do? And what's going to work best for everyone involved? And as Saturn moves from your first house, you know, you're finally taking, and trust me, I just had Saturn leave my ascendant not that long ago. And once Saturn goes over your first house, like, it's going to feel really good. We're not done with that yet. Saturn is going to come back, but Saturn going into your second house is now bringing restrictions, walls, barriers, as well as, you know, being more responsible, having opportunities to be more disciplined, and, you know, be more committed to your finances, your money. What does your money look like? You know, how much do you own? How much do you owe? The second house, not only about money, finances, but physical, actual, tangible possessions that you own, as well as personal resources. So Saturn goes into your second house. There is going to be a big theme change for you guys. And we're almost done with your first house stuff we've got going on. We're not done yet. But as Saturn moves into Aquarius, this is going to feel like a big pressure being relieved for you guys. So you out of more than anyone, you and Cancer risings have the most to look forward to this March. But then on March 22nd, that's when we're going to be having Mars conjoin Pluto. Now, I usually do not talk about Pluto really at all, let alone aspects to Pluto. But I did want to bring this up because this is pretty intense, and Mars-Pluto conjunctions kind of, symbolize power struggles and some tensions. And as this is happening in your first house, Mars has been in your first house for quite some time. You're probably working really hard, maybe a little bit more irritated or agitated than normal. Mars, heats things up, so it causes energy. Mars also causes fights and conflicts. So you might have been feeling a lot of that personally for yourself. And as Mars conjoins Pluto, this is where shit kind of hits the fan. This is where, if you've been working 80 hours a week, this might be the time where you need to take a break for yourself and you need to tell yourself to slow down. But Mars conjoining Pluto also might be that time where, you hit a wall and it's time to bust through that wall. Pluto and Capricorn can feel very heavy and feel like a big barrier in the way. And Mars and Pluto, Mars conjoining Pluto might be that time to fight that wall. But that's a decision for you guys to make. I just wanted to bring it up because that is going to be a pretty intense transit that we feel literally the day after Saturn moves into Aquarius. So it's a pretty intense few days right here. But then the next day after that, on March 23rd, we have the new moon in Aries. This is exciting because this is going to be happening in your fourth house, and as we should all know by now, new moons are the best time to kind of reset your intentions, kind of get a little bit more level-headed, put your focus in one area of your life for a second. And this focus is being drawn to your fourth house of your family, your home life, your parents, your living situation. So during this new moon in Aries, this might be a good time to kind of get resettled back into your place, maybe clean up a little bit, make it more comfortable, and make it easier for you to work in. But then we get to the end of the month, and on March 30th, this is when we're going to be having Mars ingress into Aquarius, and this is a pretty big deal as well. One thing is Mars will ingress into Aquarius and conjoin Saturn at 0 degrees Aquarius. Later on this year, when Saturn goes back into Aquarius, Jupiter is also going to go into Aquarius and conjoin Saturn at 0 degrees. So there might be something that happens or comes up here at the end of March that might come up in a way bigger way at the end of the year. So it's kind of a long time to remember, but just be a little bit observant of what's going to happen here at the end of March, because there might be something that plays a bigger role in that more towards the end of the year. But Mars, of course, is moving out of Capricorn. It's one of its exalted signs. Mars likes to be in Capricorn. And Mars in Capricorn, like I said earlier, is, about putting in a lot of hard work, putting in 80 hours a week, not being dedicated to your work almost in a sense, being dedicated to your energy and what you're investing yourself into. But as Mars moves into Aquarius, this is kind of about doing things on your own terms. Mars in Aquarius is kind of like, being a little rogue. It might deal with being isolated or alienated a little bit. But Mars in Aquarius is about doing things that work best for you and the way that works best for you. Not what everyone else wants you to do or not what society says, but Mars in Aquarius is you're going to do whatever the fuck you're going to do. The problem is Mars moves into your second house. So this is where you might be dealing with spending more money, going through money a little bit more, trying to resource it, trying to find out where you can get some more money. But the big thing is when Mars moves into Aquarius, it's going to conjoin Saturn. So this really looks like addressing financial situations. And if you've been spending more money, this might be the time where you start really going like, hey, where do I need to be more appropriate with my money? Where do I need to start investing my money? And where can I really utilize my money in the best ways that's going to work better for me? That's kind of like that whole Aquarius mentality. And that's how we go into April. There's a couple other transits that I didn't talk about this month. I wanted to focus on the bigger transits for you guys now that I'm doing these horoscopes again. It's been like 6 months since I've done these, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. So let me know what you guys think in the comments as well. If you guys have any personal planets that are going to be really affected by these transits, please let me know in the comments as well. And let me know what you're going to be doing, what plans you've got going on, how you think March is going to treat you, Capricorn risings. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. But that's what I got for you guys. So thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing to my videos. I love and appreciate every single one of you, and I'll be seeing you next month.